That's hilarious.
Usually workshops, I don't know, we're here for you. If you have any questions you'd like to ask about the fiddle or about techniques or anything, whatever, feel free. So we're not here to do a concert. We do that later. This is a workshop. So that's how I look at it.
That's fine. That sounds good to me. I have some questions for you, though.
I'd like to. I mean, I don't know if I just like to hear y'all play like a tune, and just hear the different styles, like just to hear two different styles and two different takes on the same tune.
Yeah,
if anybody
like, could you
wants
take one tune and play it in 3 or 4 styles?
5 or 6 styles.
I know you could.
Has anybody never heard Byron play? Not many have. You're well known, Byron.
That would be a good way to start.
Well, how about an old time tune or something?
That'd be cool.
What about Ragtime Annie or something like that? You know that?
Sure. I haven't played Ragtime Annie in a long time, but sure.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one.
You want to start it? You want me to?
You start.
should teach you that ending.
Oh,
It
let's
goes like
hear it.
this. And after you play the tune, you go.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, I did that on an album I had called Dad's Favorites.
Oh, yeah. Now, I learned
Three
that-
different banjo players played on that track.
At the same time?
Yeah, same time.
Wow. Now, I learned that from an old recording from the 20s of a guy named Eck Robertson. Now, did you meet him? Did you know him?
I knew Eck Robertson, yes. I learned Sally Gooden from.
That's something like that.
He was great. He was, of course, he was ancient when I knew. I mean, he was like, you'd see him one day at a fiddle contest, and he'd say, "How old are you, Uncle Eck?" They call him Uncle Eck. 79. And then you'd see him next week somewhere. "How old are you, Uncle Eck?" 87. did not. I mean, you know, it just, it's probably close to 100 though, I think, when he passed away.
Yeah, he was. I think he was one of the very first, or maybe the very first Texas fiddler to record in the 20s. And maybe he might have been the first.
He was the first
fiddler, I think,
to record.
And they're still great to listen to.
Yeah, he was a real character. And we went to the Newport Folk Festival together. They had a lot of fiddlers. 1965, they invited my dad and myself and Eck Robertson and Arthur Smith.
Wow.
Arthur Smith was a fiddler that a lot of you probably don't realize that he wrote great tunes that you play and don't even realize he wrote them, like Blackberry Blossom and Red Apple Rag and Peacock Rag and Florida Blues and
Florida Blues, yeah.
a bunch of those.
Would you want to play one of his tunes?
Well, maybe. But it was great that year because all those fiddlers there. And that's the year I met Bill Monroe, and got to do a lot of jamming with him at that festival. And that's when he asked me to play in his band, so that was a thrill. You know. Yeah. Question.
Is that pretty standard to learn a song from another fiddler? Is that how you're learning?
It's about the only way anybody learned back before tape recorders and videos and stuff. I mean, you used to be able to tell where a fiddler was from by the way he played. Mm-hmm. It's like an accent, you know. I mean, you could tell where the person was from, where they spoke.
Although once there started being phonograph records and music started getting broadcast on the radio, right, that actually did start to change a little bit, so that you'd have people from West Virginia playing Kentucky tunes or even Texas tunes, stuff that they heard. But I think also in those earlier times that fiddlers' ears were really more attuned, so they could hear something once and then they could remember it, which now you have to listen over and over and over again, at least I do.
Well, didn't fiddlers play more by ear than, I mean, there wasn't written music hardly way back then. They all played by ear, didn't they? Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think there probably might have been some music written for fiddle tunes. They were hard to find, I know. My dad learned to read music from a local guy in our hometown. But I don't know how much of that he used as far as learning tunes. You usually learn from the people around you who played. And that's the only place communication you had. I'm talking about 100 years ago or so, or 80 years ago.
I think I know there were some tune books from, around the time of the Civil War and before, but those were for musicians to play at dances, kind of a slightly different style of fiddling, but it seems like most of the real old-timers, at least the people I met, didn't even read music.
I know there was a book called 1,000 Fiddle Tunes that probably came out in the 40s or 50s, I don't know. And most of those tunes were just real
basic,
very basic, real basic. Half of them weren't correct.
You can't learn fiddle music off of the page. You have to hear it.
It really helps. A lot of classically trained. How many of you fiddlers do we have here? Most of you? How many of you are classically trained? A lot of you.
Well,
we'll forgive you.
But
classical music in school, and then I dropped that, got into bluegrass, and I haven't really played for a really long time, so what I'm having trouble with is learning how to play fiddle. We don't have anybody in our town that teaches fiddle, and I need to learn the correct stroke of how to do that, because when I started back into it, my dad right away says, no, you sound like a classical violinist again, so that's...
Well, when you mentioned the correct stroke there, that's what happens is you need to lose all your inhibitions with the bow.
Okay.
I mean, you don't worry about up, down, and all this.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's just really, unless there's just a few things that you can work on with that, but as far as that's concerned, you just need to listen a lot to like tunes you want to learn. Maybe listen to different fiddlers playing. Try to get it in your head how it goes, maybe. And even if you do it, work one part at a time, like ragtime only has two parts.
Okay.
And maybe just work on that first part for a while, and then go to the second part or something.
Okay.
But your bow dictates what you hear. I mean, like if you're going to play, okay, That's where that da 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 da. I mean, but if you want to do, you know, and then that's a little different bow action. You don't have the same da 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 da. So, however you want to interpret the tune, that's what's going to do it.
Okay.
I mean, it's very difficult to say every little bow stroke. Oh, it's got to go this way, this way, this way. I mean, for fiddle playing.
It is sometimes it can be helpful when you're just getting started to do that, but then you have to, like you said, you have to lose your inhibition and get so you can do everything going both ways, because otherwise what happens if you make one mistake, you get all messed up.
True.
Right.
They work on the wrong direction.
And you don't want to be thinking about the bowing all the time either. You know. So, yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That really is a hang-up for me because I'm too lazy to sit there with a piece of music and learn the bowing at the same time that I learn the melody. And when I do get off, when I'm playing it fast, it really screws you up. Do you consciously try to play different pieces with different bowing so you can recover? Or do you have a preferential bowing? Do you feel what bowing you're doing?
Never think about it.
You never think
I
about
never
it?
think about it either.
But you probably are always, for instance, if you start Ragtime Annie, you're always starting on one string with a given bow motion.
Usually fiddle tunes, you start with a downstroke.
Right.
Although I start a lot of my phrases, when I first start the tune at the very beginning, I always start with a down bow, but a lot of times I start phrases with the up bow, which is something I didn't even realize till someone else pointed it out. And then another thing that, I think a lot of times beginning fiddle players, it is really tempting to do that shuffle bowing, but then, if you're ready to start getting past that, then sometimes it's nice to slow things down a little bit and consciously change the bow in the middle of a phrase, or, bow over the bar line or something. I mean, you do that a lot in your playing, I notice.
Yes.
Yesterday in the performance, I don't know what the bowing technique was, but it sounded like you were catching the E string and making it ring as you went to the lower notes, and I didn't know if it was a technique or if it was just the magic of how you do it, but it sounded like a ringing was going throughout the melody.
What was that? Sally Gooden? What tune?
It was the last song before the encore, I think. I don't even know if Grace told us what it was. It was just you playing, and then they were...
Yeah. Well, a lot of fiddle tunes you drone. I mean, like... See, I'm playing a... That's the only thing I can think of.
That's what you were doing, yeah, and I don't know what that...
Yeah, it's just an
you're
open
catching.
E
Yeah.
and a C sharp. I'm leaving up on the C sharp, then open, get that. Yeah. Now, Eck Robertson, when he recorded Sally Gooden, he tuned the D string up to an E and the G string up to an A. And he never used his little fingers.
And that is something that when you're, a lot of times when I'm teaching to people who are just getting started is if they're willing to retune their fiddle, I do like to try and teach them some tunes and open tuning, and sometimes you can tune your two low strings up, like what Byron just said, or if you don't want to put that much strain on your fiddle, you can tune the top two strings down, so your G, G, D, and that can be a really nice way to just get a little bit more relaxed with the bow, because when you do that, if you hit the adjacent strings, it sounds good, and you can kind of experimenting with sweeping across the strings and just get a little bit more free with it, and the whole fiddle rings too. It's fun way that way.
When y'all learn it, or at this point you probably learned lots of tunes, but one thing I wonder about with fiddle players now, especially, is like how pure, like the piece of your version, and when it's not pure anymore, like when it's, you know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of a hard question, but when you learn, you all are talking about regional styles and stuff, and you can learn a regional style and learn a tune in that regional style, and you obviously are going to develop your own style as a fiddle player. But do you kind of feel like you have any thoughts on when it's not the same tune anymore, or when it's so far from the melody, or when it's, when it's too experimental, or,
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of a hard
question.
Well,
I was always taught, if you're going to improvise on a tune, play it, let people know that you know the tune first.
Yeah.
Play it for people, like, Ragtime Manny, for instance. I mean, or pick any tune, no make a difference. And then try to improvise a little bit the next time you play it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And don't start flashing everything. There's a film with those smart aleck licks right off the bat.
When I teach old time fiddle, what I try to do with my students is, we listen together to old recordings or field recordings, so that I could just teach them my version, which could be as close as I could get maybe to that, but I kind of feel like it's good to start out trying, when you're learning the tunes, to just try and get as deep into the whatever your source is for starters, and then I think over time you have to play your own style. I mean, there's no avoiding it. No matter how much you might try to copy somebody else, you can't really be that person.
Everybody has their own style, believe it or not.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I've seen some fiddle players who really make an effort to copy somebody else, and I think that's a mistake. I mean, to a T, It's nice, it's flattering to do that, I think, for the person who's copying, but, I mean, we all copy somebody, but it's like Bill Monroe said one time, try to learn from everybody you can, then play it your own way.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I have to say that when I've heard people play really archaic styles of musicians that aren't alive anymore, and then they, try and get as close as they can to that can be pretty thrilling too. Mm-hmm. It's just a different, and also, I mean, some people have a creative thing within themselves that's going to allow them to really do something with the music like the way you do, and then other people maybe don't have that. And I think it's, if it makes them feel good to imitate somebody else, and then I think the important thing is to have fun with it, really.
Yeah.
Something that I've picked up over the time is the bow work. That is so important, and I've been around a few people who have criticized the way I hold my bow, and I noticed that you hold yours way up from, and she's classically trained, which, have you ever seen her hold her bow?
I'm classically trained too.
But you've changed from the classical way of holding the bow. How important is it? Is it just what feels comfortable with how you grab it, or?
You'll get arguments about that.
Different things work for different people.
Right.
I mean, some people, I didn't even know, how do you hold yours?
Just like that. With thumb under the frog. That's the way my dad did it. See,
Yeah,
that's
a lot of people.
And that's what's comfortable.
And I don't
for me.
do it. Don't look at me to get the correct technique.
No.
But I see it really doesn't work,
I hold that way because I've got such short, stubby fingers and small hands and what have you. For me, that's comfortable because it helps me hold the bow up. To try to wrap my fingers around in this position like that, I just can't play that way.
I used to hang out with an old man in Louisiana named Dennis McGee, who was one of the first Cajun musicians to record in the 20s, and he was in his 90s. I can't even remember how he held his bow. It was very loose, and it was kind of like this or something. I mean, it was a way that I would not be able to play at all. He just made magic music that way.
I think Vassar Clements holds his like this almost.
Oh, really?
With his hand, Yeah, really drapes hold the fingers up over the, if you're watching. It's weird.
Wow. So basically speaking, it's just whatever you're comfortable with and what works.
Whatever you use. I mean, it's like, I relate technique to sporting events a lot of times, like golf, grip, or baseball stand. If you can hit a home run, why change it? Why would a coach want to change a guy who can hit a home run? They'll do it. A lot of coaches will. Oh, no, you're doing that wrong. No, well, to me, if you can play, there's certain things that, I would say, oh, no, you really don't do that. But basically, I would never tell somebody, oh, that's wrong, especially when it comes to fiddle playing. Because there's so many techniques,
Is there any bow movements that you can't do unless you hold? No, is there any way that you hold the bow that you can't do certain bow movements with?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if somebody's having trouble with the bowing, you could, you know, I would encourage them to try holding it a different way. I mean, if somebody is, you know, the bow's sliding all over, or they're just like having trouble with the mechanics of it. And I have students that I hold the bow like this with my finger in between the frog and the stick. But then, you know, I have some students that hasn't worked for them, and then they've tried this, and it really works. And so if it works, then it's good.
Alison Krauss, if you ever notice her, she puts her index finger completely through it like that.
Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh. You don't want to get away from her, huh?
Play another one.
Grip on it.
Play another one.
Well,
Do it up on Sally Good.
what's that?
Play Sally Good.
Oh, well, that's the What do
Play
you want to play? Let her play
St.
something.
Anne's Reel or something.
I don't even know if I can remember St. Anne's
Oh.
Reel. Sorry.
Or something. Whatever.
Play Funky Deer?
Yeah,
Sure.
play all that.
Fork deer. All right.
Fourth year.
Are you going to retune?
Yeah, sometimes when I play in D, sometimes I tune the low
Oh, that'd be
string up
neat.
to A. After you, sir.
danced on that.
Held ourselves back.
But that's, do you see the bow stroke she was doing there? It's a little different. It's more of a almost like a Georgia shuffle or something.
Kind of, yeah.
Which is really, that's what those bow strokes were, and the rhythm things were made for dancing back years ago. That's what the fiddle was made for, and that dictated the type of dance you danced to, and so on and so forth. My dad was an old-time fiddler who played a lot of dances, and he had to play a lot of different types of tunes, like schottisches, polkas, waltzes, of course, and of course, downs and stuff. But it was, but that's how the fiddle, you know, so it made people want the type of dance that he danced to.
You can just, go out to a nightclub or turn on the radio or anything. I mean, if they wanted to, in those days, if people wanted to have entertainment, they had to make it themselves.
That had to be a lot of fun too, work all week and then go Saturday night to somebody's house or barn or someplace and have a big dance and get together.
When I used to visit some of the older players in Louisiana, they'd tell me about, the old time dances where they'd move all the furniture out of the house except for a table, and then they'd put down there. A lot of times the whole band would maybe just be a couple of fiddlers or maybe fiddle and accordion, and the musicians would stand on the table, and then everybody else would dance around, and they'd play all night. And then they'd play all night, and then they'd go to work in the fields the next day.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Sometimes you're listening to somebody doing fifths, and it's almost a cacophony of sound, but they slip into it and then they slip out of it. You know what I mean? And I wonder if you could demonstrate a few of those that you use, or any comments about that?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just, it's just, you don't do a lot of them, I mean.
Yeah, it's a spice.
Yeah, right.
It's a spice.
Vassar used to say something like, here's something you can do when you want to make it look like you're really doing something.
Right.
Chinese breakdown.
What is y'all's take on a lot like the kind of sounds coming out of Nashville now, like the fiddle style, the kind of Nashville sound?
I don't listen to it.
I don't really listen to very much that was recorded before about I don't listen to much from after about maybe 1945 or something like that. I just have really been digging into the old stuff, so I don't even know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I say I don't listen to it. I listen to it, I know. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's.
I'm sure there's a lot of great players.
Great players,
They could
yeah.
probably play rings around. I'm sure they can play rings around me.
I thought was pretty interesting is the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack was the biggest selling record
Yeah, that was good.
of the year. Not got any
great.
airplay, so figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, what's your most basic advice for when you're playing in a group and they look at you for the break and you need to figure something out? I mean, what's the very basic advice you have for figuring out that break for yourself when you don't really have something worked up and you have to fit in?
It helped play them. Just play the melody. Play the melody. Just play the melody, and that's the place where you would want to start. And anyway, I mean, I would think. What do you think?
Yes, I mean, if it's like a jam session or something,
Or it's not a song you have memorized.
right.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
if
mean,
it's a
just
jam
sticking that
session,
key.
you have to learn the chord structure,
Yeah.
and then hopefully that you can develop enough licks that you have stored up around those chord structures to ad-lib maybe or something, just take a decent break on it.
Sometimes what you can do is, like if it's a break that's 4 phrases, because a lot of songs are structured that way, is, if you have some idea of how the song melody goes, is to, like, if you don't have licks at your fingertips for the whole chord structure, sometimes you can play the first 3/4 of the melody, and then for the 4th line, play some kind of a lick that's more notey. That's kind of a classic way to structure a bluegrass break.
Could you show me?
Let's see. Well, let's see. The best way would be to.
Yeah, it's hard
If you don't have
without,
a band.
without a
Hard to
tune,
do that,
you know.
just-
I mean, it's,
Yeah. But if you're just staying within the chords that are in that song, it'll be okay.
Could you play like a break for like Love's Like a Flower or something in A? It's like example maybe or something.
I'm sorry, a break to what?
Love is like a flower. Tell me love is like a flower. Or Blue Ridge Cabin Home or something.
You want to do one?
well,
I know
Well,
it's
sure.
hard to
I mean,
figure.
if you know, if you were
Yeah,
like,
without
what
a
key
band.
would you be in? Would you
Just
say?
A maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's it.
I
There you
mean,
go.
The last yeah.
best thing to do is listen to the original record of it,
Yeah.
Flat Scruggs, listen to what the fiddler did. Try to play it like that, and then do your own thing, you know. I mean, it's really important to listen to the first recording of it, I think.
I agree.
I mean, see what they did. See what they did. Bill Monroe's music, Flat Scruggs, all that early bluegrass stuff is very important. Very good learning tools, and listen, get the feel of it. You know, that's
Sometimes
the whole
it's-
thing is the feel and the rhythm of what they did.
Sometimes
Rhythm is
it's
very
not
important.
what you think either. You know, like when I've gone back to some of the old recordings to learn the breaks, and I listen to them, and sometimes there's little things that they do that is not what I would ever think of. You know, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
And now you have all these things where you can, slow stuff down without changing the key. I mean, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah,
can
my
be a
computer
great-
has a program on
That
it.
can be a great learning tool.
SoundForge, it's you can break that stuff down.
Yeah, it's great now to learn to play because there's so many different ways to do it.
Well, I'm trying to change my methods, Byron. I'm trying to get away from having to depend on music. You know, I grew up, they'd set a piece of music, I was taught by the rote method, which absolutely ruined me. And now I've been practicing and trying to
Right.
take your stuff and
I know it's
listen
difficult.
to it.
It's
Oh,
difficult to do that.
Hard to break chords.
Yeah, sure it is.
But that program does real well because you can break this fast stuff down, and your ear has time to hear it. Now.
No, no, you can't play it slow enough. So you just can't. You know what I mean?
Well, you can't play it slow, but you can actually play it slower to
Yeah.
where you can do a better job of trying to pick it up by ear than trying to.
But I do videotapes, you know, I've got, as you know, and when I try to slow it down, I'll play it a little different than I would if I did it up to speed. You just do.
You're talking a little bit about some music folklore. Any interesting folklore attached to the fiddles you're playing, history-wise?
Well, mine is made by a friend of mine that his name was Dean Trammell. Lived in Ducor, California at the time when he made this, 1995. I've known him for years. He was originally from Oklahoma, and he started repairing violins and fiddles, and he decided to start to make some. And he numbered them. He numbered from 1 to start just number 1, and then 1 on up. Number 8 I really liked, so I bought his number 8. Well, that's a really good sounding fiddle. I said, make me a 5-string. I said, I never had a 5-string that I'd like to play because none of them were very balanced or they didn't sound right or something. So he said, okay, I'll try to make you. So he made 2, and I picked this one out of the 2. And then I just did it, and then he made me another one. I didn't like it as much, but that's when I just thought it. And I've played other fiddles, but I always kind of go back to this one. And there's new makers that are great right now that make as good as violins you ever want to play, and of course everybody wants an old Italian violin if they get an old one, but I mean those aren't very affordable.
This one, this is a German fiddle from 1924, and this is actually belonged to my husband Eric's Uncle Ted, who got it new in 1924 for a college graduation present. He was a music teacher, and so I like to play
Is that
this.
which one?
It's a Roth.
Roth. Oh yeah.
And it doesn't have the deepest sound of any fiddle, but I like it because it's a family fiddle, and it's also very reliable. It's not a temperamental.
Those older Ross are really good.
Really well made.
Yeah, if you can get a hold of one of those, and they're $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 fiddles. Yeah. The older Ross. I'll give you 500 for one.
I'll see that 5 and go on next 100.
But
tell them about that violin you bought at the Berline Society.
Oh, yeah, I went to the Violin Society of America this last November. There was 180 makers there, or so, from all over the world, and they're, they had competition, and the makers were. So the judges went in and judged for 3-4 days on tone and workmanship and you name it, and they just go through it. All these experts and makers and everything, they'll go in there and they judge. And I think it was like Friday. It went all week long, and then Friday morning they opened it up to the public to look at violins. I mean, you could go in and play them and look at them, and they hadn't announced the winners yet, but then they had them numbered, and then there was a piece of paper they had who made the violin. So, I mean, it was like, can you imagine going through 180, and they're just laying there, and so I just go do that, some of them sounded good, some of them didn't, You know how new fiddles sound. I mean, some of them are just a little green sounding sometimes. And then you pull that in, just do that, and go right down the line, So I had a pencil with me, and I do this, and I just go on, and first I'd find one that really kind of stuck out in my mind, So I mark it, and I go down the line, and one just kept coming into mind. I always going back to it, and everybody really liked that thing. So. And it was a maker from Chicago, Kelvin Scott was his name. It was an antique Gennari type violin. Really had a great tone to it. And there was about 3 or 4 others I really liked. And so I ended up hunting down this Kelvin Scott kid, and I told him I really liked it, and I'd like to purchase his violin if he'd want to sell it to me at a decent price. And sure enough, it won an award. So the price actually goes up, and all the ones that others I picked also won an award. So I felt pretty good about that. It took me about an hour to go through it, and all these judges went for days. But I thought it was kind of neat to do that, And but he's going to make me a 5-string also. So the deal was, I said, okay, he's never made one, but he's working on it. Really nice violin. Really, really good. I didn't bring it with me. Because
you didn't buy that one though, huh?
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
And we're not going to disclose the.
He gets $10,000 for his fiddles.
How many fiddles do you own?
Oh, he's got
300. 300 or more.
Really?
So I have a fiddle shop, so you got to have fiddles.
Before you had the fiddle shop, how many did you have?
Well, my dad collected instruments, and I never could figure out what he wanted all those fiddles for. He had all the books on violins and stuff, and he studied that, and he had about 30 of them when he passed away, and he, of course, gave them all to me, and I sold all the good ones right off the bat. They just went like that. Boy, a lot of them I wish I hadn't sold them, because I wasn't playing them. I was playing a certain one, and I didn't, But then about 1987, I went to a fellow's house. I didn't know him. A friend of mine said, hey, go with me. This guy had a stroke, and he's got some instruments. See, I want you to look at them. So we went to this guy's house, and he had collected instruments for 40 years. I mean, every day when he walked out of his house, he'd come back with an instrument or something. He lived in Southern California. And I went to his house, and I couldn't believe it. It was like, I never seen anything like it. It was from the floor to the ceiling, stacked up with instruments. Of all kinds, mandolins, banjos, guitars. And he had about 10,000 old 78 records, 70 RPM records. So, he had over 250 fiddles in the rafters of his garage. He hadn't looked at in 30 years.
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh!
I got a friend banging those loose, and mud daubers and stuff had been up in there, just filthy, dirty. And I tried to help him out, tried to get these things fixed up. So I got about 30 or 40 of his violins, the better ones that I thought were good, and bought those from him. That's what got me started in collecting, or started my music store, you might say. And so, anyway, it gets into you, this music instrument collection thing. You know, it's a never-ending
Addiction.
thing. Yeah, it's addiction. Yeah.
I don't play at all, but my kids have always played violin. What's the deal with the 5 strings?
Well, you got 2 instruments in one. You have a viola also here. You've got the fiddle, and then you have the C. So, mostly Western swing guys like it a lot. I mean, but I use it a little bit here and there, you know, and it's fun. And I don't know, once you get to using it, you miss it if you don't have it. The way that way with me. So, now I've played this now for since '95. So,
Wow.
that's it.
Did you play some waltz?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Could I play you a waltz that I wrote?
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
It won't take long. I have a new album called Flat Broke Fiddler, new CD, and I like to write tunes. And the town we live in Oklahoma is Guthrie, Oklahoma. By the way, we have a nice bluegrass festival there every first weekend of October.
Please go.
Yeah, you've been there.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really, this will be our 7th year for it, and it's, but Guthrie is a Victorian town. It's a real old, kind of like Durango here in a way. They got a lot of Victorian buildings and stuff, and the whole town downtown is like that. A lot of the old buildings and stuff made in the 1890s. But I wrote this real simple waltz called the Victorian Waltz. By yourself.
Sometimes you'll see a performer do something, I don't know what it's called, but with a bow actually hops. I don't know if you've seen it. Mike Cross sometimes will do that. And it's a controlled process. He gets some really pretty sounds out of it. But every effort I've made going home, trying to reproduce it.
Oh, there's a lot of bow techniques. It really is. I mean,
Are you familiar with any sort of hop technique like that, where the bow actually hops, bounces?
Mm-hmm. Usually, when you're real nervous, that's what happens.
He's not nervous.
No,
this is control.
Control burn. Huh?
That's right.
I don't know.
It's a hop, and I just it's a single stroke sort of thing, not a.
Of course, the Irish fiddlers, they have a different bow.
Oh yes,
you know, it's really
triplets.
Yeah.
They do lightning pace,
which I can't do. I never studied it. So, can you do it? No.
Sometimes I can, but not with any you know,
You
consistency.
got to keep on that. You probably do it, don't you?
A little bit. No.
Yeah. More questions?
Could you play us a Cajun tune?
Sure.
We do it on time.
Yeah, how long are you doing that for?
It's after 1. Isn't it?
How about one more song? How about that?
Oh, we got till
16 minutes.
Shirley Blonde. I bet Byron does Shirley Blonde.
Oh, Shirley Blonde, you must know that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
The national anthem of
Oh, wait. Here it is, Shirley Blonde. There's another different, kind of, 3 different style of waltz there for what.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was, I love that,
thank
funny
you.
chord, whatever that is. It was really real dark sounding. Beautiful.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I sure have. That was one of the first Cajun songs to be recorded back in the late 20s. And then just about everybody recorded it.
You can't tell it by now, but my nickname used to be Goldie Blonde. When I was growing up, I had very blonde, kinky, curly hair. I was considered almost a towhead. My name's Joe, so they called me Jody Blonde.
All right.
You got time for one more?
I suppose. Anybody got anything else they want to ask?
It's not a question. So you just play some, Cajun tune and then like a bluegrass tune, and there's different cultural influences that made one and one another. Well, could you just kind of comment on what were some of the things that like the very origins of those, like why somebody else's cultural background this sounded this way and that carried forward as Cajun and this carried forward as bluegrass?
Oh yeah, I think any form of music had a certain background where they got their influences from. Bill Monroe was blues,
And then also, like bluegrass is kind of a little, maybe one step more removed from it, but if you look at the kind of dancing that was done to the music too, that's different, like breakdown kind of dancing that would have been done in Kentucky is different from dancing in Southwest Louisiana. You know, in Cajun music, there's some left hand kind of ornaments. Like, I mean, I was kind of doing a lot of it in Jolie Blonde, but there's a lot of kind of a downward slide that you don't hear that so much in bluegrass fiddling, and the bowing is real different.
But blues and old time music and folk music was part of bluegrass, you know, that was handed down. And then Western swing, of course, you got blues again, and swing, jazz players, you know, playing influence. Bob Wills had all that. And a lot of the African American black music was spiritual music, and their influence was very, very big in that, forming that style of music. Say Western swing and also bluegrass too.
And Cajun music too.
Yeah. I have a question. My preconceived notion is that at least the old-time fiddling originally came from Irish and Scottish music. So, first off, am I right on that? And if so, when did a distinctive style of its own evolve?
Well,
if you go back 150 years, would you have heard a lot of Irish and Scottish singing music?
Well, there's a lot of, I think, what makes American old-time, southeastern fiddling or, old-time country fiddling, I think that, the defining thing that makes it so different from the Irish and Scottish fiddling is that I think there really is a lot of African-American influence in that kind of fiddling, and there were a lot of African-American fiddlers in the 1800s and a lot of cross-pollination, musical cross-pollination there. I don't know when exactly, because we don't really know what the music sounded like back then.
Yeah, I think as people moved west, I think they kind of picked up their own accent with the. Naturally, a lot of the tunes, like you said, come from the British Isles, and once they got over here, they kind of just evolved into a different little sound, And I've been to Scotland and Ireland and stuff, and you hear the same tunes, but they have a different name for them, and essentially the same melody and stuff.
But the groove is often kind of different.
Yeah.
Even though the melody might be the same, the kind of feel of it has changed.
Mm-hmm. So when I hear Cajun, it almost seems like a climatic thing or the climate, because it seems like it's coming from a place where it's hotter, so a lot of those, to me it sounds like a drippy type of
They're
sound.
melting.
Yes,
exactly. Sure. But it's interesting to think about that, how it all evolved, and I'm sure there's a lot of historians who have written on that and stuff. But like I say, mainly people learn from their area, especially where I come from, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas area. Then you get in the southeastern part of the state, and they all play a little different. Much shorter bow stroke, and a little faster usually, just different type tunes. And then
It seemed like, when Byron mentioned Arthur Smith, who was kind of like a precursor, really close precursor of bluegrass fiddling. And it seems like one thing in bluegrass fiddling that's different from the pre-bluegrass styles too is that there's more kind of long bow fiddling, which maybe that is a jazz influence thing. I don't know, but it seems like a lot of the earlier style fiddlers, there's a little, not so much just long bows. Although there's exceptions to all of that stuff.
yeah,
So
sure.
it's hard to really make a hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
Where do you see your careers going from here? Do you have any interests that you want to develop in the next few years?
obvious that you're both extremely talented, creative, and energetic. So where are you headed off to? What directions are you going from here?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty well stationed in Oklahoma now, and I have my own music hall and fiddle shop, so I'm pretty happy.
Great one too.
So I can play in my music hall and be home in bed in 5 minutes.
That's nice.
And we sell out our shows almost every other weekend. And but I have a band that we play all over wherever. You know, we don't try to get on the bluegrass circuit because it's just too expensive to get them out. You know, we have to charge too much to do it. So, but we play mainly in the Midwest.
Who are you playing with now? Still with?
John Hickman's still playing banjo. He does all the repair at our fiddle shop. So it pretty well keeps me around that area. I'm not retired. Lots of people, you went back there to retire? So, no, I've never been more busy in my life, you know, playing music and stuff. When I lived in California, I never was this busy. But, you know, I mean, traveling is not the older you get, to me, it's not very attractive. You know, but I enjoy it. I'm still playing, you know.
Musically, is there any interest that you have that you're going to be looking or pursuing or?
Well, I promote a bluegrass festival there in Guthrie. I think I mentioned that a while ago. First weekend of October, we have that, and then of course having my own shop, like I say, and stuff like that. I still do recordings and stuff.
I don't think she means musically writing songs and stuff, and what kind of, if you're going to go to jazz or something other than that. But I think that's what you're asking, isn't it? That musically, what you're thinking about.
Anything catch your imagination that you haven't done before that you think you might want to try out?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on who you're playing with, I think. You know, it depends on who, like, people in the band. We decided to do a tribute to a couple of guys that played in the Byrds. I knew Gene Clark and Graham Parsons. We did a tribute to those guys. And it was a little different than what we normally do, but we enjoyed it. I think you just do things that if you like to do it, go ahead and do it, you know. I mean, as long as it's music.
I think what frustrates me,
Byron, we have like 5 minutes left.
Okay.
You want to maybe either answer a few questions or close out with a song?
Is there a song from that tribute that you just did, the Graham Parsons?
Well, it's just all vocals, you know. I mean, it's so I don't know what you're saying, really. You know what I mean? It'd be difficult to play a tune from that. But, I mean, it's just, I don't know. In May, I'm going to do a Western Swing show with some of the old Texas Playboys that are coming through Oklahoma. Cool. That's still pretty popular in Oklahoma and Texas, of course.
Are you getting any airtime anywhere? I travel all over, and it frustrates me. I try to. You've recorded what now? A dozen? Probably at least a dozen.
No, I don't know. You know,
so frustrating. You listen to these. We have the old time music.
Get on the internet. You can listen to my stuff on there.
Well,
got it on the MP3. You can just poke it on there and listen to it.
I know with XM radio, do you know any stations on XM in the radio that are playing any of your stuff now?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
You never know. They may say they are, but you never know.
So the check rolls in for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hold your breath.
Would you play one more tune before we wrap up?
Sure. Okay. What would you like to hear? Any certain?
Your favorite tune?
My favorite tune, gee.
How about your first tune? One of your first tunes.
My very first tune I ever played was Mississippi Sawyer. My dad taught me that.
Oh my goodness.
That's the easiest one he knew. He didn't know Bowl of Cabbage Down.
You pick. It doesn't have to be that.
Oh, I don't make Mississippi. Do you know Mississippi Sawyer?
I do.
Let's play it.
Play it.
I mean, why not? You know.
Thanks for coming to the workshop. The Dobro workshop's next. You do it. That was great.